In the early hours of Monday morning, a neighborhood in southwest Detroit was reduced to a world of ice and snow, as if a doomsday scene had arrived. At about 3 a.m. local time, a nearly century-old 54-inch large-diameter water supply pipeline suddenly burst in this densely working-class community, and the huge water that gushed out instantly flooded the entire street, kicking off a sudden hail disaster. After the pipeline burst, a large amount of icy water quickly flooded the surrounding residential areas, and the water level once reached the knees, trapping dozens of residents in their houses. Firefighters had to drive inflatable rafts in the flying ice and snow to rescue the trapped people, and some people were pushed onto the bucket of the front loader to escape danger. As the temperature dropped sharply, the originally turbulent water quickly froze, and one submerged car after another was frozen in place, like an ice sculpture that could not move. This unprecedented flood not only caused serious damage to the lives of residents in the disaster area, but also paralyzed the local infrastructure. A large number of houses lost power and heating, and many families could not live a normal life. For a time, the southwest block of Detroit was reduced to a world of ice and snow, becoming the Ice Kingdom in this cold winter. This sudden disaster undoubtedly brought great challenges to the residents and the city government here. At about 3 o'clock in the morning, a loud noise broke the quiet night, and then a turbulent water rushed out from the ground like a flood. The originally quiet residential area instantly became a mess, and hundreds of houses were instantly flooded. It's like white water rafting. The speed of the water rushing out is so fast that it's unbelievable. Claudia Otis, a local resident who witnessed the whole process, couldn't help but sighed. I saw a large amount of cold water pouring down the narrow street, and in the blink of an eye it flooded over people's knees. Soon, the whole street was submerged in the quiet night, like a turbulent torrent across it. I've never seen such a horrible scene. It's like being caught in a white water rafting. Otis said desperately. This sudden flood not only caused great damage to the lives of residents, but also brought great challenges to the rescue work. The fire department rushed to the scene immediately after receiving the alarm, but faced with a water level that had already exceeded the knees, they had to use rubber boats to enter the flooded houses for rescue. We had to risk our lives and shuttle through the cold water in rubber boats. It was not easy to rescue the trapped residents one by one. A firefighter who participated in the rescue couldn't help but sigh. At the same time, many residents trapped at home also asked for help in various ways. Some people simply climbed out of the second-floor window to call for help, hoping to attract the attention of the outside world. Some even jumped directly into the cold torrent that flooded over their chests and barely escaped by their own strength. It was really a life-and-death moment. None of us expected this to happen. Everyone was extremely scared, and the whole block fell into chaos. Otis recalled, however, even in such a dangerous environment, the fire department personnel still risked their lives to carry out thrilling rescues again and again. Some trapped people were directly lifted onto the bucket of the front loader, while others were dragged by firefighters from the icy torrent that was over their waists. According to statistics, the fire department rescued a total of 94 residents, including 31 children and 12 pets. At the same time, the scope of the disaster is also expanding. Not only residential areas, but also some nearby streets were flooded. A large number of flooded cars were trapped in the water, and as the temperature dropped sharply, they were soon frozen into ice sculptures. Both of our cars are finished, all submerged in the water, and now they are completely frozen. It's like being buried in ice and snow. Otis said sadly. Seeing that the area has become a land of ice and snow, the Detroit city government has also realized the seriousness of the situation. This is truly an unprecedented disaster. We must act quickly and devote all our efforts to rescue, Mayor Mike Duggan said bluntly at an emergency press conference. This once bustling residential area has now become a frozen world with no grass growing. When the surging water swept in, this originally quiet and peaceful working community fell into chaos and panic. Residents were forced to struggle for survival in the cold water. Faced with a sudden disaster, they all experienced tremendous psychological pressure and panic without exception. When I was urgently awakened by my neighbor, my first reaction was, "Oh my God, what happened?" Then I looked out the window and the whole street was flooded. I couldn't believe my eyes, recalled Claudia Otis, who lives in the center of the flood. 4 ordinary working families living in this remote community. The sudden flood is undoubtedly a nightmare experience. As the water level continued to rise, the originally quiet and peaceful neighborhood instantly turned into a surging torrent. It was like being caught in a white water rafting. The water was flowing so fast that it was unbelievable. Otis couldn't help but sigh. For residents who had never experienced such a disaster, this was undoubtedly an unprecedented huge test. None of us expected this to happen. Everyone was extremely scared and the whole neighborhood was in chaos. Otis said anxiously. For a time, the originally peaceful residential area became a mess. The rolling flood had already flooded over the knees. Emergency shelter has become everyone's top priority. At this time, the firefighters risked their lives to drive the rubber boats and rescue the residents trapped in the water one by one. We had to risk our lives and shuttle through the cold water in the rubber boats. It was not easy to rescue the trapped residents one by one. A firefighter who participated in the rescue later couldn't help but sigh. For those residents trapped at home, this sudden disaster was undoubtedly a huge mental test. It was a life or death moment. None of us expected this to happen, Otis recalled. Everyone was terrified, and the whole neighborhood was in chaos. At the same time, many families are facing even more severe difficulties. As the temperature continues to drop, the power supply and heating systems that were originally in normal operation have also been paralyzed one after another, leaving the residents in the disaster area in dire straits. Our electricity and heating have stopped, and the whole house is as frozen as an ice cellar. We can only rely on a few small electric heaters to keep warm. Otis said helplessly. For these residents who became homeless overnight, the current situation is undoubtedly worse. In addition to dealing with the paralysis of basic living facilities, they also have to face huge property losses. Our 2 cars are gone, all submerged in water, and now they are completely frozen. It's like being buried in ice and snow, Otis said sadly. There are many residents who have suffered huge losses like Otis's family. A large number of cars in the disaster area were frozen in place, becoming ice sculptures that cannot move. My truck can still start, but it makes strange noises and my tools are all frozen. We can't even go to work now, said Roberto Barco from the rescue center helplessly. For these residents living in dire straits, the disaster is undoubtedly a huge blow. Not only do they have to face the paralysis of basic living facilities, but they also have to bear huge mental pressure and property losses. I have my own house, my own things, this is my home. But now everything is destroyed. What should we do? Otis lamented. In the critical moment, the Detroit city government and relevant departments quickly took a series of emergency measures and devoted themselves to emergency rescue and post-disaster reconstruction. As the flood spread, time became extremely precious, and any delay of a minute or a second could lead to more serious consequences. For residents who have been ravaged by the flood, the city government immediately opened temporary shelters to provide food and accommodation and other necessities of life. If you don't have electricity, heating, or even water, there's no need to stay in your home. We'll put you up in a nice hotel right away, Mayor Mike Duggan said categorically at an emergency press conference. The fire department also quickly mobilized all its efforts to engage in emergency rescue. Regardless of the risk to their lives, they drove rubber boats through the icy floodwater that was over their knees and rescued the residents trapped in the water one by one. We had to risk our lives and ride rubber boats in the cold water to finally rescue the trapped residents one by one. A firefighter who participated in the rescue later couldn't help but sigh. According to statistics, the fire department successfully rescued 94 trapped residents, including 31 children and 12 pets. This thrilling rescue operation undoubtedly became the most exciting scene of the disaster. It was really a life and death moment. None of us expected this to happen. Everyone was extremely scared and the whole neighborhood fell into chaos, Otis recalled. However, post-disaster reconstruction work is not limited to temporary shelter and emergency rescue. As the flood receded, the city government and relevant departments quickly organized a large-scale house inspection and infrastructure repair work. We have sent 80 inspectors to conduct a comprehensive inspection of the damaged houses, Mayor Dogon said. We hope to complete the inspection of all houses within this week and start the repair work as soon as possible. For those houses that have suffered serious damage, the repair of power supply and heating systems is undoubtedly a top priority. Our electricity and heating have stopped, and the whole house is as frozen as an ice cellar. We can only rely on a few small electric heaters to keep warm, Otis said helplessly. In response to this problem, the city government quickly dispatched professional maintenance personnel to carry out emergency repairs in order to restore the basic living conditions of the affected residents as soon as possible. We have a professional maintenance team, and they will deal with these problems quickly. We will quickly restore power supply and heating here so that everyone can return home as soon as possible. Gary Brown, director of the Detroit Water Department, said confidently. At the same time, the government also stated that it would bear all uninsured losses of the affected residents, including repairing heating and hot water systems and cleaning basements. With the full efforts of the government, the flood-ravaged areas are gradually returning to order. Residents who took emergency shelters have returned home one after another and are rebuilding their lives step by step. We will repair these damaged houses as soon as possible so that everyone can return home as soon as possible. Brown said, "We have an experienced team and will definitely be able to complete the repair work in a very short time." At the same time, in order to prevent further losses in the disaster area, the police also sent more patrol forces. We will strengthen patrols in this area to ensure the safety of residents' lives and property, Mayor Dogon said solemnly. We will always be here until all repairs are completed. Although the Detroit city government and relevant departments quickly took a series of emergency measures to try to save this sudden flood, subsequent analysis and reflection are also very necessary. This disaster exposed many problems, such as the aging of urban infrastructure and defects in the emergency system, which need to be highly valued by all parties. First of all, this water pipe burst incident highlights the serious problems of the Detroit city government in infrastructure construction and maintenance. It is reported that the 54-inch large-diameter water pipeline that burst was built in the 1930s and has a history of nearly a century. For a long time, due to the lack of sufficient funds, the maintenance and renewal of these old pipelines have been delayed, which eventually led to this major accident. We know that this pipeline is very old, but it has not been updated in time due to funding issues. This burst incident has undoubtedly sounded the alarm, reminding us that we must attach great importance to infrastructure construction and maintenance. Todd King, head of the Great Lakes Regional Water Authority, GLWA, said with emotion. Not only that, this flood also exposed many defects in Detroit's emergency response plan and rescue system. Faced with the sudden flood, although the fire department was dispatched quickly, it was still unable to deal with it effectively. We had to risk our lives and ride in rubber boats in the cold water to rescue the trapped residents one by one. The firefighters involved in the rescue side. There are also certain problems in the coordination and cooperation between government departments, and the rescue force is not well matched with the severity of the disaster. This not only greatly delayed the rescue time, but also aggravated the panic of residents. It was a life or death moment. None of us expected this to happen. Everyone was terrified, and the whole neighborhood was in chaos, Otis recalled. It was precisely because of the imperfect emergency plan and rescue system that many trapped people eventually became victims of the flood. More seriously, the serious property losses caused by this accident also dealt a heavy blow to many residents in the disaster area. Both of our cars are gone. They are all submerged in water and are now completely frozen. It's like being buried in ice and snow, Otis said sadly. There are not a few residents who have suffered huge property losses like this. They not only have to face the dilemma of paralyzed infrastructure, but also have to bear huge economic pressure. Flood disasters will not only cause direct property losses and casualties, but may also trigger a series of secondary disasters, bringing more serious harm to the affected areas. First, flood disasters may lead to geological disasters. When a large amount of rainwater washes and floods mountainous and hilly areas, it is very easy to cause serious geological disasters, such as mudslides and landslides. For example, in July 2021, the Kyushu region of Japan was hit by severe floods, causing multiple landslides in Kumamoto Prefecture alone, burying a large number of buildings and affecting nearly 400 people. According to statistics, in the past 20 years, the direct economic losses caused by geological disasters caused by floods worldwide have reached more than $100 billion. Secondly, flood disasters may also trigger public health crises. After flooding, drinking water sources are polluted, and the deterioration of environmental sanitation conditions can easily lead to outbreaks of various infectious diseases, such as cholera, typhoid fever, and intestinal infectious diseases. According to UN statistics, after the severe floods in Pakistan in 2010, a large-scale cholera epidemic broke out in the area, infecting more than 300,000 people. In addition, floods may also cause epidemics, such as plague and dengue fever. At the same time, flood disasters may also cause secondary energy and industrial safety accidents. Many energy facilities and factories are located in areas close to rivers. After flooding, these facilities may be damaged, leading to serious accidents such as oil leaks and explosions. In 2017, after Hurricane Harvey hit the United States, large-scale leaks occurred in many refineries and chemical plants, causing serious environmental pollution. In addition, it is worth mentioning that flood disasters may also cause food security problems. Floods submerge farmland and destroy food crops, which will directly lead to a serious gap in food supply in the affected areas. In 2018, Cameroon suffered severe floods, which damaged 60% of the local farmland and reduced food production by nearly 30%, resulting in a shortage of food supply in the local area. It cannot be ignored that flood disasters may also cause traffic paralysis. Infrastructure, such as roads and bridges in disaster-stricken areas, are often severely damaged, which brings huge obstacles to the transportation of people and materials. In 2019, the Missouri River Basin in the United States suffered a severe flood, with more than 1,000 kilometers of roads flooded and many bridges destroyed, seriously hindering the development of rescue and reconstruction work. It is particularly important that flood disasters may also lead to paralysis of urban operations. The power supply, water supply, communication, and other infrastructure of the affected cities may be severely damaged, affecting the normal operation of the city. In 2017, the floods caused by Hurricane Harvey in the United States submerged 55% of Houston, causing nearly one-third of the city's residents to lose water and electricity. In addition, floods may also paralyze traffic within the city, exacerbating rescue difficulties. Flood disasters are one of the natural disasters that are widely present in the world. Due to the influence of factors such as geographical environment, climate characteristics, and human activities, different regions are prone to flood disasters. First, tropical areas near the equator are one of the areas with high incidence of flood disasters. These areas have high temperatures and heavy rainfall all year round, and are prone to extreme weather events such as heavy rains, typhoons, and storm surges, which can cause serious flood disasters. For example, the Amazon River Basin in Brazil and South America and the Niger River Basin in Africa will experience large-scale floods every rainy season, which will have a serious impact on the production and life of local residents. According to statistics, in 2020, nearly 2 million people were affected in the Amazon region of Brazil alone, with direct economic losses exceeding $1 billion. Secondly, South Asia, located in the monsoon climate zone, is also a high-incidence area for floods. The region is affected by the monsoon every summer, with heavy rainfall, and is prone to disasters such as river bursting and flooding. Taking India as an example, in 2021, Uttar Pradesh, India suffered a once-in-a-century flood, resulting in more than 100 deaths, more than 4 million people affected, and direct economic losses of up to $1 billion. In addition, neighboring countries such as Bangladesh and Nepal are also often plagued by flood disasters. According to statistics, in the past 10 years, an average of more than 1,000 people have died from floods in these countries each year.